Donnett with Embroidery.com. Welcome to my needlework blog demo today. So, today's video I'm going to show you a couple of things. I'm going to show you how to stitch on linen, two-handed stitching with the Easy Stitch lap stand, and what directions your stitches should go. So, let's get started. Okay, I'm going to show you guys two things at once. How to stitch on linen and how to stitch two-handed, because I'm going to be stitching two-handed, so I might as well show you, right? You like my little head peeking through here? So now I'm not going to go off my pattern. I'm just going to do a row here to show you how to get the countdown and such. Now it doesn't matter what hand's on top and what hand's on bottom. It's not even like a dominant thing. I'm right-handed, yet my left hand's on top. My best friend, her right's on top. So, so when you're stitching on linen, you're doing normally 2 over 2. So that means two floss threads here over 2 fabric threads. So you'll just count over 1, 2, and count up 1, 2. And now you can go, you can do all your bottoms, or you can even throw in something else. Your stitches. So when you're doing your stitches, it doesn't matter if you go left to right on bottom or left to right or right to left, as long as you're consistent with your entire piece. So again, it doesn't matter what your tops and bottoms are, as long as they are the same through the whole piece. Now you can see here, since I started, I don't have to count my over 1, 2, because now I have a foundation stitch. So I know I can just go straight down from this stitch, and then I can go straight over from that stitch. So once I have my foundation stitches, my counting is kind of done for me. So, and now you can also cross your X's as you go, or you can do like I'm doing and do a bunch of bottoms and then come back and do some tops. It's completely preference. Except, of course there's a catch, except when you're doing hand-dyed floss. If you're doing hand-dyed floss, you'll want to do your X as you go. Otherwise, you may end up with a different color on top than you have on bottom. So to make sure the color stays consistent, you'll want to cross your X as you go when stitching with hand-dyed. Now, you can probably tell that I've got 2 different colors of floss here. That's because that's what this calls for up here in this little pattern I'm doing. And so it's called tweeting. So when you have one color of one floss, another color of another floss, it creates this really cool effect. You can kind of see it up here in her dress where I've already finished it. It just adds a whole nother technique. So you can see that once I get going on my linen, it's really, really easy and simple. Oh, one little thing here I can show real quick. To get your stitches to lay nice and flat, if you take your needle and come in between your floss threads, oh hello, I didn't even do it. Line the back up. Okay, come here in between your floss threads. This is called railroading, and it helps make your stitches lay flat. Our thread wants to twist just because of our hand movements. Just however we may be twisting the thread or something. A lot of times when you get done with a piece, one thread will be longer than the other. It's just because you've twisted it somewhere, and it's just how our hand movements are. So, if you find that your thread is twisting a lot, you'll want to let your needle dangle, or just separate your threads and smooth them out, because you do want a really nice flat stitch. It'll just make the whole thing look just so nice. Okay, so that is stitching on linen. So now, stitching two-handed, you can see that my hands are my arms rather, my arms are barely moving as I'm stitching. You know, my hands stay quite in the same place. I don't have a lot of extra movement going on. You can also see that my floss is almost going straight in and straight down, which means less wear on your floss. This is great if you're using silks or pearl cottons, because the more wear on those, they will become fuzzy. And so if you're going straight up and straight down, you're getting less wear on them than if you were, you know, pulling them to the side. So you'll have more of the floss that you'll be able to use instead of it going fuzzy. So this is, I mean, I don't know. You can see how pretty fast it is. I think it's faster than what I call stick and stab, which is where you go up, down, you know, where your whole arm is moving constantly. So the less movement I have to do with my arms, and I'm just barely moving my hands, the better. So we covered quite a bit of stuff. We got how to stitch on linen. You're going 2 threads over 2 fabric threads. Stitching two-handed, where whichever hand feels comfortable. You can also see that my left hand here is basically resting completely on my scroll frame, my lap stand here. I mean, like my whole weight is just resting right on it. And if I'm on the couch or something and I'm stitching, I will even prop a pillow up under my right arm, so then it's all nice and relaxed too, so I don't have to hold it up. But you can see once you get your foundation stitched on linen, it is so easy to just continue. So this here that I'm stitching on right now is an Evenweave. It's a juggle on, I believe. And so you can see that all the fibers are nice and round and they're plush, and the thing about Evenweave is that they are all even. Every single one of them looks the same. They're all completely even. Now on linens like Cashels or Belfast, you could have little nubs and stuff, and the fibers could be thicker or thin, depending on what kind of fabric, you know, it is. On those, you still only go over 2, no matter in how fat the fiber is, no matter how thin the fabric fiber is, you still only go over 2. So that is stitching on linen. I know, I was always told, linen's so hard. And literally, once you get your foundation stitches, it is so easy. You can see just how nice and smooth it is, and just, I love linen. I think it gives it a really beautiful backdrop to your piece that you're working on. It just looks a little bit more authentic, maybe even a little bit more old-fashioned, you know, a little timely, instead of Ada. Okay, so this is 2 over 2. So you've probably heard the phrase 1 over 1. So what that means is 1 floss thread over 1 fabric thread. So as we're doing 2 over 2 here, that would mean that you would do 4 stitches of 1 over 1 to replace that 2 over 2. So it gives it a much finer look, much finer look. I actually did, you'll find when people will do 1 over 1 when they're doing skin, because it gives it a more natural look and a more soft and subtle look. And you get so much detail when you do 1/1. I actually did her skin in it, and so I will take it up where her skin is to show you. Actually, I'll just use this 2/2 down here, and I'll just use the 2 floss threads, and I'll show you 1/1 right here. You can see it, how teeny it is. It's teeny. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so finish that off. Okay, so I'm going to come up here. So when you're doing 1/1, okay, well okay, let me, okay, so there is 1/1, which is 1 floss thread over 1 fabric thread. Then there's what is called a tent stitch, which is 2 floss threads over 1 fabric thread. So you will literally take 1, and you'll just do a 1/2 a stitch instead of a full cross. So it will look like that. So you will do 4 stitches there instead of 1 stitch. That's how fine the detail is. And if you were pretending that I only had 1 fabric floss on here, you would go back and cross it. So pretend I only have 1 floss on here. But it just gives it that really fine, detailed look. Now, when you are doing 1/1, it is easier to cross your X as you go. So can you see the difference between 2/2 and 1/1? It's just so teeny and so detailed. It's absolutely fabulous. So it is easier to cross your X as you're doing 1/1. And it is pretty hard to unpick 1/1. So you have to be very careful if you make a mistake on that. So, okay, so that is how to stitch on linen, how to stitch two-handed, how your stitches should go. All your bottoms should go one direction, all your tops should go the other. Doesn't matter which way they go as long as they're all throughout the whole piece going the same direction. 2/1 with a tent stitch, 1/1. We're pretending that's 1/1. It's really 2/1, but we're pretending. So I think that's it. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Make sure you turn your notifications on. That's how you'll always know a new video is up. As always, I love to hear your comments and suggestions, so leave those for us below. Happy stitching, everyone, and we'll see you next time.